Late autumn in Portland wrapped the city in a biting cold, as if the streets themselves shared Clara Bennett's silent loneliness. At 24, Clara lived quietly with her mother Marilyn in a crumbling apartment steeped in the stale scent of mildew and old cigarettes. Marilyn had once been a celebrated stage makeup artist, but the long descent into alcohol and failure had turned her into a drifting shadow, buried beneath debts and the wreckage of forgotten dreams. No sunlight ever breached the stifling gloom of that apartment, just as no hope had ever truly touched Clara's heart. She had lost her sight at 12 after a cruel accident, and ever since she had learned to navigate the world through sounds, scents, and distant memories. But it was not her blindness that made her unforgettable, it was her voice, deep and aching, like poetry breathed into being. The dream of becoming a writer still flickered quietly inside her, fragile yet unyielding, like the last ember clinging to life in the ashes of a world that had never been kind. One evening, as darkness swallowed the damp streets of Portland, Marilyn stumbled into the room, her breath heavy with the stench of cheap liquor. Her voice was raspy, yet it carried a strange, forced excitement. "Clara," she said, "I have good news. A man wants to help us. Get us out of here." Clara sat still at the worn kitchen table, her fingertips brushing lightly across the sticky surface. She could hear Marilyn's nails tapping anxiously, a sound Clara had long learned to associate with lies. The air in the room thickened, dense and oppressive. "He's a music producer," Marilyn continued, her tone overly bright. "His name is Nathan Hale. He heard you recite poetry at that community event last month. Said he was completely captivated by your voice." Clara nodded slowly. She remembered that evening, a rare moment when she had felt free, unburdened, herself. She vaguely recalled someone speaking with her mother afterward, but had never imagined it would lead to this. "Met him again," Marilyn rushed on. "It wants to help you, give you a chance, a better life." "How?" Clara asked, her voice steady and low. "Just stay with him for a while. At his house, outside the city. He's lonely, and you won't have to worry about anything anymore." A cold, heavy silence fell over the kitchen. Clara's chest tightened. "And you agreed?" she whispered, her voice catching. Marilyn didn't answer right away. She turned away and muttered, "I had to. The loan shark said they'd kill us both if I didn't pay. I didn't have a choice." "No choice?" Clara let out a bitter laugh. "You sold your daughter and called it no choice?" "I did it to protect you," Marilyn cried, her voice cracking with desperation. Clara rose to her feet, her legs trembling but her spirit unyielding. She didn't need sight to know. From this moment forward, she had no mother. "He's coming tonight," Marilyn said softly. "Just pack a few things, he'll handle the rest." Clara turned and walked to her room, each step shattering her heart into sharp, brittle pieces. Not because she had been sold, but because the one who had done it was supposed to love her most. As night fell, Clara stood by the foggy window, clutching her thin backpack to her chest. Below, the low hum of an engine faded, followed by the soft, almost sorrowful click of a car door closing. It was the moment she knew she was about to leave behind everything she had ever known, no matter how wretched it had been. And with that, she understood. She no longer had anywhere to belong. Nathan Hale didn't say much. He simply extended a hand, his fingers brushing her elbow in a quiet offer to guide her. Clara politely pushed it away. She didn't need anyone to lead her. For 12 years, she had learned to walk alone through the dark. Nathan's mansion stood in the outskirts of Portland, where towering maple trees replaced the damp alleyways Clara had once called home. The air here was scented with fresh wood and wild grass after the rain. But to Clara, everything carried the chill of unfamiliarity, of displacement. "We are here," Nathan said, his voice low and gentle. "Would you like me to guide you in?" "No need," Clara answered, curtly. "I've been finding my own way for half my life." Nathan offered no argument. He simply opened the door in silence. Inside, Clara's every step echoed across the vast polished floors. Nathan patiently described each room, the long hallways, the winding staircase, the library lined with books, the music room with its old piano. But every word, every smooth wall Clara brushed with her fingertips only made her feel smaller. like an object misplaced in a world too clean. "Your room's in the east wing," Nathan said. "Private bath, small kitchen, everything designed for the visually impaired." "How thoughtful," Clara said, her voice edged with scorn. "Thoughtful hesitation." Nathan drew a long, silent breath. No protest, no apology, only distance. Clara ran her hand along the cold, flawless wall. Everything was too pristine, too perfect, too far from anything that had ever felt like home. 3 days blurred past in an exhausted haze. Clara barely left her suite. She crept through the hallways only when she was certain Nathan was gone. The only voice she heard belonged to Mrs. Margie, the elderly housekeeper with a voice as soft as a summer breeze. But even Margie's gentle kindness couldn't reach the hollow places inside her. Here, Clara had everything: safety, food, clean clothes, a warm bed. But each night, sitting alone in the heavy darkness, she understood with brutal clarity. She had everything, except a home, and herself. On the 4th night, as fierce winds rattled the windows, and Portland's sky churned with a brewing storm, Clara sat curled in the old library, listening to the final chapters of an audiobook. Lightning slashed across the sky, and then an explosive crack of thunder. The power snapped off, plunging the house into suffocating darkness. Clara froze, reaching for her cane, but in her startled panic, she fumbled and slammed hard into the edge of a bookshelf. A sharp pain seared through her hip, and she stumbled, collapsing onto the cold floor. Her cane skittered out of reach, vanishing into the shadows. In the thick dark, panic surged, battling against pride and humiliation. Clara crawled across the floor, her fingers sweeping desperately. "Clara!" Nathan's voice came from the doorway, low and steady. "I'm fine," Clara rushed to say, her voice trembling. "Just dropped my cane." Nathan stepped inside cautiously, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "About a meter to your right." Clara groped in that direction, and when her fingers closed around the familiar handle, she exhaled a small, shaky sigh of relief, as if reclaiming a piece of herself. "Thank you," she whispered. "Let me walk you back to your room," Nathan offered gently. "No need," Clara protested, pushing herself upright, but just then a deafening thunderclap shook the sky. Clara flinched, her balance faltering. Nathan's hands were there, one firm around her waist, the other steadying her arm. In the chaos of the storm, amid the howling wind outside, Clara felt the warmth of his touch seep through her thin blouse, stirring something long buried deep inside her. Together, they moved slowly through the pitch-black hallway, Nathan describing every turn, every small step. His voice, low, warm, patient, became the map Clara could trust in the suffocating dark. Another flash of lightning, another crack of thunder. Instinctively, Clara clutched Nathan's arm tighter. He held her closer, without saying a word. And in that moment, between the rain, the darkness, and tremors too new to name, something quietly, irrevocably began. The next morning, Portland's sky felt freshly washed, sunlight stretching gently over the east garden, where the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers mingled in the crisp, clean air. Clara awoke, wrapped in that soft stillness, her mind still clinging to the memory of Nathan's hand at her back, his low voice guiding her through the storm. Mrs. Margie had once mentioned a stone path leading to a small gazebo at the edge of the garden, a place made especially for Clara. Without hesitation, she found her way through the soft earth underfoot, breathing deeply the scent of jasmine, roses, and lingering rain. When her hand brushed the wooden bench inside the gazebo, Clara sat down carefully. Without planning, without thought, she began to sing. An old folk song, simple and raw, the kind her grandmother used to hum into her dreams. Clara's voice, deep, warm, velvet soft, filled the air, mingling with the gentle scent of the morning. "Don't stop," a voice called from behind, making Clara start. It was Nathan. He stood only a few steps away, his voice carrying an honesty and awe she wasn't expecting. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to intrude, but your voice, it's incredible." Clara pressed her lips together, her cheeks flushing with a quiet embarrassment. "It's just an old song," she murmured. "If you'd like." Nathan hesitated. "I have a piano in the music room. Maybe I could play and you could sing?" Clara was silent for a few heartbeats, then nodded. They entered the music room, flooded with sunlight spilling across the polished wood floor, with the old piano standing proud in the corner. Nathan sat down, his fingers brushing the keys, at first hesitant, then gradually coaxing notes into life. Clara listened and let her voice join the music, gently weaving itself around the melody. No explanations, no defenses, only music, and two souls, quietly finding each other between the spaces. When the song ended, they sat there in stillness. Neither rushed to speak. Clara let her hand rest lightly on the piano's polished surface, where the music had just breathed. "This," she whispered, "can't be bought." That night, Clara lay awake, unable to find sleep. The melody from the piano still lingered in her mind, threads of quiet sadness weaving around her heart. She didn't know why she left her room close to midnight, only that her cautious steps, guided by the faint sounds of breathing in the dark house, led her to a door left slightly ajar. Inside, muffled sobs broke the silence, raw and broken. Clara froze. She didn't knock, only whispered, "Nathan?" No reply, only the scraping sounds of someone battling a nightmare. Pushing the door open gently, Clara entered. Nathan sat at the edge of his bed, his body drenched in sweat, hands clutching his head. "I'm sorry," he choked out, his voice rough. "I didn't mean to scare you." "Nightmare?" Clara asked softly, her voice gentle. Nathan nodded, his breathing ragged as if trying to contain a storm within. "About Emily," he rasped. "My wife, she died 3 years ago. Car accident. I couldn't save her. Every night I see that look in her eyes, the look of someone who knows they're going to die." Nathan's voice cracked and a raw, helpless sound escaped him. Clara said nothing. He simply stepped closer, found his hand in the dark and held it tightly. "You're not the only one with scars," she whispered. Silence. Then Nathan spoke, his voice trembling. "You're the first person who's made me feel alive." "Me too," Clara replied softly, her smile trembling on her lips. They sat together, side by side, without promises, without words. Between two wounded souls, something tender, something real, had quietly begun to heal. A week later, Nathan hosted a grand charity gala at the estate, golden light spilling over glittering gowns and polished smiles. Clara, dressed in a deep blue silk gown carefully chosen by Mrs. Margie, walked beside Nathan hand in hand, her heart tentatively blooming with a fragile hope she hadn't dared feel in years. Everything seemed perfect, until a soft, poised voice called from behind. "Clara, isn't it? I'm Sophie. Nathan and I go way back." Clara turned. Sophie. Elegant, strikingly beautiful, with eyes that held more stories than her smile betrayed, stepped forward. "Nathan has such a generous heart," Sophie continued, her voice sweet but sharp. "After everything he's lost, helping others became a habit for him." She leaned closer, her words barely above a whisper. "Maybe you're just part of that pattern. He needs you to be fragile so he can feel strong." Clara clenched her hands into the folds of her gown, her breathing suddenly tight and uneven. Sophie offered one final, sugary smile, and then drifted away, her high heels tapping against the marble floor like small, measured cuts against Clara's heart. Standing under the dazzling lights and the murmur of polite laughter, Clara felt a hollow ache gnawing at her chest. Tiny, sharp-edged seeds of doubt began to take root, quiet yet merciless. And before Nathan could turn and reach for her, Clara had already slipped away into the night, her breath shallow, as if she were fleeing not from him, but from her own heart. Clara stood frozen under the dazzling lights, her breath coming in short, painful bursts. Doubt clawed at her chest, fierce and unrelenting. The world around her blurred into meaningless chatter. Without looking back, she turned and slipped away into the night. Clara didn't look back. Outside the estate's gates, she pulled out her phone, found the taxi number Mrs. Margie had once saved for her, and quietly called for a ride. She couldn't see the approaching headlights, but when the driver stepped out and called her name, Clara followed the sound of his voice and climbed into the car, carrying with her the doubts gnawing at her heart. She sought refuge in the only place memory still whispered: Mrs. Henderson's worn apartment, the neighbor who had once shielded her when life was at its harshest. Mrs. Henderson, with kind eyes and warm hands, asked no questions. She simply opened her arms, embraced Clara, and let her sit silently by the fire, as if the world outside had never touched her. 3 days later, as Clara carefully moved around the small living room, a familiar voice sliced through the quiet. "Sweetheart, Mama's here to take you home." Clara froze. It was Marilyn, and beside her stood a strange man, his voice cold and sharp as a blade. "Monsieur Antoine's in the music business," Marilyn rushed to say. "Your break. He wants to hear you sing. This is your big break." "No," Clara said firmly, stepping back. "I'm not going anywhere." "You don't get to choose," Marilyn snarled, her eyes flashing with fury. "You owe me, and it's time to pay." The man lunged forward, grabbing Clara's wrist with fingers like ice. She struggled, panicked, screaming into the heavy air. At that moment, the door slammed open. "Let her go!" Nathan's voice roared through the apartment. He stormed inside, placing himself between Clara and the stranger. In the scuffle, a knife flashed, slicing across Nathan's arm, darkening his sleeve with blood. But Nathan didn't retreat. He stood his ground, a human shield between Clara and the past trying to reclaim her. Police sirens wailed outside. Flashing red and blue lights spilled into the room as officers surged in, cuffing Marilyn and the man, pulling them out like shadows, erased by the dawn. When the chaos ebbed away, Nathan sank into a chair, his face pale. Clara dropped to her knees beside him, her hands trembling as they found the bleeding wound. "How did you know where to find me?" she whispered, voice breaking. Nathan gave a faint, pained smile. "Margie said you once spoke of someone named Henderson. I just followed the pieces you left behind." Clara wept. Through burning tears, she knew, even when the world turned away, one person would always find her. The next afternoon, under Portland's pale sunlight, Clara sat quietly in the leather seat of the car that carried them back to the estate. Nathan drove with one hand, the other arm wrapped tightly in white bandages, his fingers occasionally flexing against the wheel as if to ground himself. Neither of them spoke, but Clara could feel Nathan's steady breathing beside her. Not pressing, not impatient, simply present. And somehow, it was that silence, that unwavering presence, that healed more than any well-meaning words ever could. When the car rolled to a stop before the estate gates, Clara didn't immediately move. Instead, she turned to Nathan, found his hand, and squeezed it tightly, sending every unspoken word through her fingertips. "I'm not the girl you first met," she said, her voice firm and clear. "I'm no longer afraid of the dark." Nathan froze, listening intently. "I choose you," Clara continued, each word soaked in certainty. "Not because I need someone to protect me, but because I want to walk beside you." Nathan turned fully toward her. Clara couldn't see the look in his eyes, but she could hear the sharp hitch of his breath, could feel the emotions flooding the space between them. They didn't kiss. They didn't rush into an embrace. They simply sat there, hand in hand, like two broken pieces finally finding their way into something whole. A week later, Nathan led Clara to the East Garden, where jasmine, lavender, and climbing roses bloomed wildly under the soft light of spring. The breeze drifted through the trees, carrying the sweet scent of flowers and the quiet blessing of rustling leaves. Clara couldn't see all the vibrant colors around her, but she felt everything through her skin, the sunlight dancing on her face, the fragrance lingering in the air, the steady heartbeat beside her. Along a gravel path, Nathan stopped. He gently placed a delicate, finely crafted ring into Clara's palm, an heirloom passed down through his family. "Clara," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "You're the only one who made me believe a heart could heal. Will you marry me?" Clara nodded, her lips trembling with emotion. "I already chose you, not because you saved me, but because in the darkness I saw you, clearer than anything." They needed no more words. Their fingers intertwined, steady and sure, as the warm spring breeze wrapped around them. In that quiet moment, love didn't need to be spoken. It was simply lived. That love, simple and unwavering, took root in every breath, every touch, every shared step they would take from that day on.